Good morning, Markus. Good afternoon, rather.
Quick introduction is my name is Markus Reymann. I'm the director of TBA21 Academy, which is an art and cultural organization investigating environmental injustices against the ocean through the lens of art, by bringing together artists, scientists, environmentalists, indigenous leadership, lawyers, and so on. So we're building these transdisciplinary research teams, collaborative teams, and we work through a number of programs, fellowship programs, residency programs, commissioning programs, usually and preferably in proximity to the ocean. So we're working from these kind of immersive experiences, transformative experiences, and then start working from there. Last year, we inaugurated a space in Venice called Ocean Space. So this is where kind of the work then usually manifests. We opened with Joan Jonas last year, which was a 3-year research project where she collaborated closely with a marine biologist called David Gruber. Mm-hmm. This year, we were going to open with Territorial Agency on the 30th of March, which clearly wasn't possible due to the pandemic. And we're still figuring out when we're going to open, but we will open. In the meantime, we've migrated everything and the research project onto a digital platform called Ocean Archive, which is the digital twin of Ocean Space, which we've developed over the past 2.5-3 years, which is a digital infrastructure where we can contextualize the work that we've been doing in a very situated locale into a broader context. This is the work that I do. My educational background is theater. I come from the theater, and I came through performance to contemporary art, and now it's like a theatrical merge of everything.
Okay. So you were in theater beforehand, and is that I mean, so the next question I wanted to ask you, and it might be linked actually to your theater background. Is there a specific moment in your life or some defining moment in your career or in your field, so be it theater, be it the arts, was there a moment or an encounter where you decided to change, where you decided to go the way you chose to go? Was there a work of art, a book that you read, an event, something, a defining moment?
I think, well, the defining moment, or really well, if you want to call it a defining moment, it's definitely a moment or an encounter that impacted me in a way that really kind of shaped my narrative tremendously, was working together with an artist called Walid Rad. Walid is an American Lebanese artist, and we worked together on a performance called Scratching on Things I Could Disavow 10 years ago. And coming from the theater, there was always this understanding of providing the audience with a transformative moment. So this is what we work towards in the theater, right? That you provide, that the audience enters the theater in one way and they exit a different way, right? And I never had this encounter or this ambition when I went to galleries or museum spaces. Or not as obvious. It wasn't as obvious for me because it was a different language, something that I wasn't trained at, and I wasn't so close to the process until I worked with Walid. And Walid really this kind of layering of narrative, object, situation, history, philosophy, political context, and so on, really blew my world and my understanding of what art can do and art can be so wide open that this was a defining moment for me.
Okay, that's very interesting because so what I wanted to ask you next is, what changes do you wish to make? And you seem to say that transformation is sort of at the core of your work. And I liked how you mentioned how Walid sort of superposes different kinds of, it's sort of, when I read everything about your website, everything is so interdisciplinary. So with all these tools and with this transformative approach, what what changes do you want to make first? What you have so many tools at your hand. You have the will to transform things, and how could you say? How do you think those tools can get to people better? Is there a particular tool that you found got better to people? It's a complex question, actually.
It is a very complex question. It's a very difficult question, right? Because we're all so different, right? So what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me, but the ambition is besides presenting good works, besides facilitating artists to produce good works, there's the ambition of the organization and myself to instigate change, right? I think what I've found and what I've over and over repeatedly found is this is the need to break down the silos. And this is, I think this is kind of now has become a common phrase, right? That people would say that, but working in and on and with the ocean this was tremendously eye-opening, because the absurdity of working with and in and on a globally connected, fluid, constantly moving and changing system that then is investigated through silos and not like, across and entangled and connected, was absolutely absurd. Once you start investigating this, you understand that the way that the ocean is designed by purpose is to be completely fractal and is to be completely distant. And this is clearly for the kind of sphere that we operate in the world that we come from, which is, I would say, a Eurocentric world, which is completely different, I would say, in any indigenous country or community in the Pacific or in Oceania region. Right, is a completely different understanding of the connectedness, the vast expanse that the Pacific in that case, or Oceania in that case, is, and the connectedness of families, genealogies, and all of this. But for us, what we found, and it didn't matter if it was in the scientific sense, in the policy sense, in conservation, even in conservation, it is designed for competition and not for alliances. And that is something that we worked very hard on from the beginning, to break down these the walls between the silos, to find languages that we can speak across the disciplines, and see how this collaboration can actually be put to work. That's the one thing. Yeah. Thank you.
While you were talking, I was thinking, so you were saying, okay, the ocean is something, I mean, you explore it as a European, then you speak about the communities that you meet that are completely connected to the ocean day and night. They live there. So would you say, so did you choose the ocean for that reason? Do you think it's something that's so that is so above us, that is so overwhelming that everyone can connect to it? Sometimes I wonder about that, because here in continental Europe, for instance, we're not connected to the ocean. So I'm interested to know how you think it's a tool that can be more powerful to get to people. And why do you think it would be more powerful to use the ocean rather than something else?
Well, I think, there's a number of things. The ocean is clearly, an entity, right, that is that is projected onto all the time. In a more, I would say, like, let's say in a sense of Oceania, everything comes from the ocean, which we learn now, everything actually came from the ocean, right? So that's the one thing. But in another sense, I believe strongly that to make the necessary changes that we need to make, and the radical changes that we need to make to find a kind of sustainable way of living on this planet, we probably have to build a stronger relationship to our environment, right? And this seems to be incredibly difficult for us to do, for whatever reason, right? And we see it the way that we consume, the way that we dispose of things, the way that we travel, although we know of our impact, right? And now the we is clearly a very clearly defined we coming from the Western world that is able to participate in this all-consuming and ever-consuming society, and travel and be mobile and all of these kind of things. So the question then becomes, how do we build and how do we deepen this relationship? And so for us, the exercise became, can we create this for an entity that is so alien and so removed from us? If we can actually trigger a relationship to that for continental Europeans, for landlocked Chinese, for Russians, if we can trigger that, then we're able to create such a heightened sense of connectedness, of awareness of the environment around us, and also hopefully a form of responsibility to take care. And this is what we're trying to create. We're trying to foster a practice of care and concern for, injustices, or against injustice, against environmental crimes, and not just to know about them. I think there are fantastic organizations that raise awareness. The question is, how do we bridge this gap between knowing and acting? And that's the kind of business that we're trying to be in creating exercises that bridge this gap.
Okay. Well, so and that actually perfectly leads to my last question. So it's about this current situation. Do you think this current situation will transform the way we think about the world? And how do you think it will impact the reality of tomorrow? How do you think this situation will change things? And you could choose, of course, to speak about something else than the environment if you'd like to.
Well, it's really hard to say, right? It's really hard to say. For us, it is for us coming from the cultural sector and the art sector. I think this is really a crucial moment to question our practice, to reimagine our practice, because our practice has always been bringing people together, building community, building a public, discussing in public, bringing people together. And this will clearly not be so easy over the next, I guess, 18 months at least, until there's a vaccine. But I imagine that even after that, this nearly global traumatic moment of being afraid of an invisible virus that kind of colonizes everybody, or potentially colonizes everybody. I think it's a deeply traumatic experience, going hand in hand with all the losses that the United States are experiencing, Italy has experienced, Spain has experienced, France, all around the world. Russia looks very bad. The UK looks very bad, right? All of these traumas that will need time to emerge and then kind of be addressed. I think will change our way of being dramatically. I hope, and I think there is clearly also a chance in this moment, right? In this moment of stillness, in this understanding of that it is possible, because this is something that the environmental movement has been demanding for the longest time. A break, a reduction, and now it's here, and now it's superimposed at a moment where we were always being told that this is impossible. We cannot do this, right? I mean, if you just think back, just in December, right, was COP25, I believe, in Madrid, right, where the world policymakers came together to discuss environmental policies, directions we wanted to take. And there were 500,000 people in the streets demanding different policies. And for whatever reason, you know, although the people were in the streets, although the science was clear, the policymakers, after 10 days of getting together, were not able to take a decision that is anywhere leading into a positive future, because we cannot stop the economy in that sense. Well, it seems to be possible, right? It seems to be possible. And now it's the question, how do we restart this whole machine? Because we can see people are again out in the streets. They're demanding to reopen. The fear of a major economic crisis is huge, and this means that there's also again there's personal lives attached to this. So I'm not necessarily sure how it's going to work, but I think we need to make very good decisions right now, and this is the possibility to make them. Are we just going to bail out all of the fossil fuel industries, all of the car manufacturers, all of the airlines, all of the fossil fuel extractions after, you know, the price of oil was negative? Are we going to do exactly like we've done before, or are we going to change and actually implement what so many people have been talking about for such a long time? And this is the chance.
Thank you. It's a great way to end the interview.